All right, it is day 14. If I was working on this every day of my life, I would only be 2 weeks in. Reality is, I think I'm about a month in, which is still not so bad. I mean, I've been pushing on this thing. But this is day 14, officially. I know I'm going to add some stuff to the beginning of this from day 13, where I was just figuring out what I was going to use for steering column, power brake booster, and steering attachments to the rack, which is the next major project. I know I went over this quick the other day when I had a few minutes to work on things, just to go over things. I put the firewall section back of the floor in, and that still needs some massaging around the transmission. I'll probably just have to cut it and redo it because I'm not a body guy. And the engine and everything is all reset now, so my exhaust clearance may change. But like I said before, you know, it dawned on me that the exhaust manifolds on these cars or these trucks are made of cast steel and not cast iron, so I can do whatever I want with them. So that makes it much easier for exhaust clearance. I'm still going to be kind of sharp angles here to get down to the rack. So, you know, I'm hoping that won't be a problem. The only issue is I don't have my U-joint yet for the steering column end. Usually I'm using 3/4 D to things, and I have those in stock. But using this GM column that I found in storage, that has a 1-inch 48 spline end on it. So I need a 1-inch 48 to a 3/4 double D joint. It's on order. I'll probably have it later today, but I do need it to try to get an idea of what I'm looking at, because even before I get into the brake pedal and such, I'd like to have the steering column set so I know what's going on here. I did take the dash cluster out. Wasn't a big deal to remove, just some screws from underneath. And actually some of them were missing because this car's been touched before. So whatever, everything's all out of there. And I really do like the original Hudson stuff, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do. It's going to depend on clearances, whether I'll just keep the Hudson gauges in here for now or make like a NASCAR type panel, I guess you would say. I am going to be removing the radio. That is the one thing that did not work on this car, even though it looks like it was wired up, but it didn't work. I'm sure it's still restorable. I don't even think I'm going to keep, usually I'll keep the head unit in there and move the guts for space. I don't even think I'm going to do that. I'll probably just make a block off plate, or gauges will end up over there. Again, NASCAR type theme. And I think that'll work out all right. Other than that, I'm just going to keep on working on it. I got a Hornet emblem for my glove box there, because this car is a pacemaker. It's not a Hornet, but I'm making it into a Hornet sort of clone. Not really exact, but you know what I'm talking about. It's just going to have some emblems on it and stuff. It's just a fun car for fun. I'm not trying to make anything that it isn't. So I think the next thing I got to do, like I said, I have to cut that open there for clearance on the column. I'm going to cut that out and lay the column up in there and just get an idea of how it feels. I need to get this seat unstuck too so I can slide it around, because I think it's all the way back. And if my wife drives this, it's got to move up. So I got to make sure that the steering column angle looks pretty good, that she could run it as well. As well as my daughter. She's the main reason I got this car. She's the huge Cars fan. So we'll see if she wants to drive it. All right, so I got multiple things going on here at once. I think I have the steering column pretty much where I want it as far as the placement goes into the car. It might go back in a little bit more, I'm not sure. Down here, I cut my tab for my shifter, and I'm actually going to have to cut it shorter, and I'm going to make it come down and then over. So I'm going to keep the column shifter, but I can't have that rubbing on the firewall, so that's got to get shortened up, angled down and over. I've got my brake pedal over here cooling off because I had to straighten it, at least the first part. this pedal, woo, she's still hot. This pedal used to bend over that way, and now it's straight, but now curved on the bottom. It's too hot. So now it's going that way, but I'm going to have to work it around the steering column once that's in place. I'm working on booster location. I've got one reference hole drilled there, and I think the booster is going to mount around like that. So I got to cut a section out of this firewall brace so the booster can get there, and I think that's a good spot where it'll be low enough to clear the wiper assembly, far enough to the side to clear the drive shaft and the driver's side valve cover and the coils, and I shouldn't have to bang too much in on the inner fender well either. At least that's the guesstimation. I'm hoping that's how it works. So I'm going to cut this section here out of the brace and drill some more holes and see if I'm close. All right, it is not easy to get any kind of video while doing all this crazy mock-up, but that's my brake pedal mount from the 4th gen F-body. Mounted on the inside just with a bolt so I can get an approximate location. I have it leveled. Everything clearance-wise is going to be fine with my steering column where I have it, and I can curve the brake pedal around the column. That's not a problem. So with that mounted there, I can mark my holes from the inside and get those drilled, and one step at a time. So I'm doing what I can until I get my my U-joint for the bottom of the steering column, but I think this will work regardless. All right, there's the hole for the power brake booster. And that guy is gonna, see if I can do this with one hand. Fit this in here. Maybe not, let's see. Yep, there we go. So that's gonna mount like that, and that clears the wiper transmission, no problem. That's goodness. Clears the engine, no problem. Clears the inner fender, no problem. And you can see why I like these smaller dual diaphragm boosters. I wouldn't buy one of the aftermarket real baby small ones. I've heard nothing but bad things about them. I just don't think they make enough pressure, but anything OEM, I would say, is a good thing to go with. So now I'll bolt up the inside bracket, see what that looks like. All right, so as we're coming in the firewall, there's the bracket for the pedal. It's going to mount like that. And then I'll show you what I have to do after that. All right, I couldn't do that with one hand, so I bolted the pedal brace or pedal bracket to the booster. Next things will be bracketry, bracing. Pedal has to be tied into the dash, and probably tie it up, triangulate up here somewhere, maybe the top of the cowl in a couple places. And the reason for that is you have to remember, if the car didn't come with a brake booster on the firewall, it wasn't designed for it. And this car, with a huge amount of firewall that's removable, or was removable, I don't know if I'll ever take it out again, you can see, look at this, I'm bouncing the booster and flexing the firewall. You can see inside the whole bracket, everything's moving. There's no way you would want to bolt that to your firewall and not attach it to the car in more ways and think that's going to be good enough for you in a panic stop. You'd probably bend the firewall before you'd get full braking. So what I'm going to do, since this is so flexible, I'm just going to support this booster and get it where I want it so the master cylinder is level, which is really pretty much where it is, and then make some bracing inside to tie all that together. Now I also have to make brackets to mount the steering column So they're probably all gonna bolt together somehow. Maybe two separate pieces. We'll see what it looks like. So we'll get started. All right, here's the first part of the brake pedal brace. Nothing special, just a piece of 1x2 steel with some nuts welded in it. So it's removable and very strong. It's just thick wall stuff. And this is just gonna sit, get the right direction here. It's gonna attach to the pedal under here, like that, and tie to the dash. I'll get it lined up around there, and that'll be the first part. All right, simple, and it works. It's bolted in there, removable, and now this stuff, I'm moving everywhere, but it's not moving. You saw how flimsy it was before. It's on there good now. So now it's safe. And that's what we're looking for. Be able to stomp the pedal and survive. So that looks good. Still haven't gotten my U-joint for the steering column. I'm gonna have to go check the mail and see if it came in. I don't even know if I'm gonna need anything else. That is really rigid right now. I don't think I need anything else to support that. I'll see when I step on the pedal. If I see any kind of flex or anything, I will triangulate off this brace up to the tops of the cowl or the dash somewhere and tie it in another spot. All right, this is good, but not good enough. Started modifying my brake pedal, as you can see. I have to still extend it down and it'll curve underneath the steering column. Steering column's got to go right through the middle, and ideally brake pedals usually right under the column. But I needed to do this crazy bend in it so I could get it to clear the column and be straight. So it looks a little crooked right now, but that's not going to matter because it's not finished. But when I step on the brake pedal, there is some deflection. I don't know if it'll show up because I can't hold the camera steady, but there is some deflection. You can see it there, right at this pivot point. It wants to move down. So I'm gonna tie this up to upper part of the firewall and triangulate that. There's not a whole lot of places to tie this thing in, but I think if I make a strong bar up to the higher part of the firewall, that'll keep this from flexing, because at least the top of the firewall is much stiffer than way down here where the booster's mounted. First part of the extra triangulation brace is done. All you'll see from out here is a couple bolts. I'll spray those black. And they go through a piece of 3/16 plate that's bolted up there to the top of the firewall. Then I'll just use another piece of that 1x2 steel and attach from that plate down to this point here where it wants to move. So that'll tie the top up there. All right, there is the final project. Final finale of the pedal brace. That's all you need. Something to tie to the lower dash, and I tie it up to the top of the cowl with heavy wall 1x2 tubing. I think it's 1x2, maybe it's 1.5. Either way, it's perfect. It works perfecto. And all that'll be left will be to lower that brake pedal. It's a little high. I think it should be down lower underneath the column's going to be right there. So we gotta lower the brake pedal, but this is good. So that is the power brake booster done. Next we'll move on to steering column. All right, I am calling it for day 14. Believe it or not, you'll believe it if you build junk. This is like 3 hours later. I have a steering column, at least in place, mocked up. All right, after a few hours of swearing and oh, the body's getting old. Swearing and fighting this column to just stay where I wanted it to stay, it's in. And all I did was weld in some 1x square stock with some studs to hold it in place. That's all that I did. But it took forever because nothing was working out as I wanted it to. So anyway, it's in a good spot. I like it. Right now, it's actually a little far. If I'm sitting in the seat, it feels like it's a little far away, the steering wheel, which is good because the seat is all the way back, and I'm going to need to move it up for me. But this way, I know somebody even taller than me could drive this car if they wanted, or somebody shorter, which is the idea. So next things will be, and you can see my crazy brake pedal. I still need to lower it. I want it down around here, so I'm going to cut this and angle down and come under the steering column here. It'll work. Next thing will be to secure the bottom of the column. I got to make a new plate here to cover the original Hudson hole. And once that's done and sealed up, the column is mounted. And that is that for the steering column, at least for getting it in place. I still have to do the connection out here, which will be my U-joint there down to there. Re-weld my tab on my column there for my shift linkage because I'm going to use a column shifter. Put the booster back in. I took it out so I could get the column in and work on this steering without anything in the way. So this is why I wanted to get this project done. I'm trying to get the harder or more, I don't know, painful projects done. Once all these big pain in the ass projects are done, things are going to start moving pretty good. I think I'm doing okay. I mean, the car is moving forward. Whew. So when I come back, I'll be on finishing up the steering column, finishing up the steering connection, and putting the brake booster back in. And that's a pretty big milestone to get all that stuff done, because there's not a whole lot of crazy fabrication left after that, really. I mean, things like exhaust and wiring and things like that, that's not really intricate work. It's just busy work. Just get it done. So things are doing good. So I think this is day 15 of the build. It's actually about almost a month to the day that I started, that I drove this thing in here with the Flathead 6. So first month milestones: pull the engine and transmission, pull the original rear, pull the original front suspension, modified the front rails, put in a Jaguar front suspension, put in a 5.3, put in a 4L60, put in an S10 rear axle, put in lowering suspension in the back with the blocks, modified the drive shaft to fit, steering column, power brake booster, all going in. I think we're doing good for a month. I think I'm going to make the deadline, but I don't want to jinx myself. See you on the next one.